Hey guys, tonight we're waltzing right into the most dangerous place history ever devised, the Victorian beauty salon, the bastions of hope and homebrewed hair dye, the scene of more bad decisions than a Vegas weekend, and the one place where you could get lead poisoning, lose your eyebrows, and leave slightly bolder than when you walked in. All before noon. So before you get comfortable, please take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. And leave a comment letting me know what time it is for you and what your most regrettable haircut has been. Now dim those lights, turn on a fan for that gentle white noise, and try to get comfortable. Let's pause for a second. What did Victorians do before Botox and Instagram filters? What exactly happened when you asked for a healthy glow in 1872? Could you survive a facial involving mercury, ammonia, and a woman named Mrs. Pringle who believes in leeches? Was your average salon experience more relaxing or just one elaborate hazing ritual? How many diseases did you risk for a fashionable complexion, and how many eyebrows were sacrificed to the cause of beauty? And would you pay a week's wages to be steamed, singed, pinched, or if all else failed, simply painted over like a Victorian shed? Congratulations. You've just woken up in 1877, inside a Victorian beauty salon with the smell of burning hair, rosewater, ammonia, and terror, and a woman in 17 layers of petticoats who is sharpening a razor. Your appointment is in 5 minutes. Good luck. You step into a world of floral wallpaper, gaslights, and a thick fog of mystery ointments. The air is heavy with perfume and the quiet desperation of 100 anxious clients. There's no turning back. Your beauty transformation and possibly a mild chemical burn awaits. You blink twice, partly from the dazzling glare of polished brass sconces and partly from the sting of eau de cologne that lingers like a cloud of invisible bees. Every wall is smothered in cabbage roses, each more artificial than the last, and every table sags under the weight of pamphlets promising eternal youth. The floor creaks beneath your boots, the parquet sticky from a century of spilled tonics and last-minute dashes for the fainting couch. And fainting is common here. Nothing sets the Victorian mood quite like a restorative swoon in public, followed by the discreet clink of smelling salts. As you step forward, your arrival is silently clocked by a row of salon regulars, each nestled beneath a tower of ostrich feathers or holding onto their hatpins like daggers. Conversation hushes for a moment, then resumes with renewed vigor. Are you here for the new lemon arsenic peel, or did your last appointment end with a legal settlement? You wonder if they can tell you've never been here before. They can, instantly. The receptionist, a woman in a tight-laced black dress, and an expression that says, "I survived the Crimean War and 3 seasons of eyebrow trends," greets you with a smile so polite it could be used as a weapon. She slides you a card, appointment time, recommended treatments, and a small disclaimer about unintended hair loss. You sign anyway. Vanity always wins. You're instructed to leave your outerwear in a cloakroom already overflowing with shawls, capes, and the occasional umbrella that looks suspiciously like a fencing foil. Shoes are discreetly dusted. If you brought a gentleman, he's deposited into the reading room and given a newspaper from last year, which is only slightly more up to date than the salon's medical advice. The salon itself is a symphony of clinks, clatters, and a background soundtrack of nervous giggling. You notice the equipment. Glass jars filled with powders of indeterminate age, bristle brushes with more hair in them than on your head, and mysterious bubbling contraptions that promise invigoration but look ready to electrocute you. At the center of it all stands the head beautician, wielding a pair of shears and an aura of absolute authority. The chairs are plush, stuffed with horsehair, and just high enough to make you feel exposed, like a specimen at a science fair. You're perched delicately atop yours, skirt carefully arranged, and your hands gripping the armrests as though bracing for takeoff. All around you, women consult beauty manuals, each page illustrated with alarming diagrams and cheerful warnings about temporary numbness. Somewhere in the background, an assistant shakes a bottle labeled patent tonic for the pallor prone. A client nearby is having her cheeks slapped rhythmically in the name of circulation. Another is delicately steaming her face over a basin of chamomile tea, eyes closed in prayer, likely hoping that this time her eyebrows survive the ordeal. There's no music, just the murmured exchange of secrets and the soft whoosh of gas jets. The conversation is half beauty advice, half neighborhood gossip, who's wearing too much rouge, who fainted at last week's charity bazaar, whose husband secretly wears cold cream. The most powerful women in the city sit here, stripped of dignity, covered in apricot oil, trading social currency while they wait for the ammonia to do its work. This is the heart of Victorian self-improvement, a place where science, superstition, and hope combine in equal measure. You realize, with the mounting dread of someone about to try leech therapy for the first time, that you're here for the full experience. The only question now is, will you leave more beautiful, more fashionable, or just slightly radioactive? Relax. Take a breath, through your mouth if possible. Your transformation has officially begun. Before you even sit down, you must remove 2 capes, 3 shawls, and a hat so large it blocks the window. Victorian beauty is about layers of clothing, yes, but mostly of anxiety and starch. It's not just the clothes themselves, it's the choreography required to escape them. A true Victorian beauty salon experience begins in the cloakroom, where a nervous attendant gently peels away outer garments like the world's most nervous onion. Each layer reveals another: wool petticoats, quilted underskirts, lace fichures, and something called a modesty panel, whose sole purpose seems to be making you late. There are sleeves attached by buttons, a bodice laced tighter than your neighbor's lips, and detachable cuffs you're worn to mind the pearl fastenings. You've barely started, and already you're sweating. Your hat, of course, is its own beast. It sits upon your head like a fortress, bristling with feathers, velvet, artificial fruit, and possibly a small family of sparrows. Removing it is a delicate operation. Hat pins longer than most kitchen knives must be extracted with surgical precision. The risk? A sudden movement, and you're instantly reenacting a fencing match, but with more shrieking. Under the hat, a woolen snood, a decorative comb, and enough hairpins to pick any lock in London. Finally, you reach your foundation, the corset. Victorian salons don't just require beauty, they demand stamina. Your corset is a rib-crushing marvel, stitched by someone with a vendetta against internal organs. Sitting down means you must angle yourself at exactly 42 degrees to avoid puncturing a lung. Breathing is optional. The salon assistant offers you a cushion which feels less like comfort and more like a flotation device for the Titanic. The average corset is laced so tightly you could snap a wishbone just by sighing too hard. And then there's the crinoline. Imagine wearing a birdcage under your skirt, large enough to smuggle several loaves of bread and, if necessary, escape an awkward party. The crinoline expands your personal space to dangerous levels. You need to turn sideways just to fit through the salon door, and heaven help anyone standing too close, they'll be swept aside like stray ducks in a gale. It's less an undergarment and more a mobile hazard, responsible for most accidental injuries and all dramatic entrances. Of course, not every garment is for warmth or modesty. Many are purely for anxiety. You catch a glimpse of yourself in the salon's spotted mirror, hairline damp from exertion, collar askew, cheeks already flushed from effort and oxygen deprivation. Across the room, another client attempts to reassemble herself after a trip to the powder room, struggling with a bustle that keeps folding the wrong way and a petticoat determined to make a run for it. Gentlemen are not spared. For them, the uniform includes stiff collars that threaten to decapitate, waistcoats lined with enough whalebone to construct a small canoe, and boots that require both a bootjack and 3 philosophical arguments to remove. It's a democracy of discomfort. If you're fashionable, you're suffering. Once you finally delayer enough to claim a salon chair, you're keenly aware of your own fragility. The fear is not just of stains or wrinkles, but of being caught without the correct number of fastenings. You listen to the other clients trade horror stories. She wore last season's sleeve. His cravat had a stain. I heard her petticoat showed at a garden party. In the Victorian world, reputation is constructed entirely out of linen, ribbons, and a level of starch that could double as a medieval shield. So you sit, perfectly upright, buoyed by underwires and existential dread, waiting for your beautician. You're ready, or as ready as anyone can be while balancing on a half-dozen layers of organized discomfort. If you can survive the salon's dress code, the rest of the day will be a breeze. Or at least, a tightly laced, crinoline-snagging, oxygen-starved breeze. Welcome to Victorian beauty. Survival of the most overdressed. Your beautician assesses you with a steely gaze. "We can fix that," she says, without specifying what that is. She pulls out a chart of head shapes, phrenology bumps, and the latest science from France, none of which is remotely reassuring. You're barely settled in the chair when she begins her diagnosis. A small notebook emerges, well thumbed, edges smudged with rouge and the faint scent of onions. She scribbles a few notes, nodding as if your forehead just confessed to a crime. Her jewelry clinks gently as she leans in, and you wonder whether the amethyst brooch on her bodice is meant to calm your nerves or ward off evil spirits. First, she circles your face, examining your bone structure with the intensity of someone appraising a second-hand carriage. Her fingertips hover over your jaw, her eyes narrowed as she traces the lines of your skull. "Ah yes," she murmurs, "a classic melancholic chin, but we'll brighten you up. And such lively temples. Did you inherit those from your mother?" You nod because it seems less risky than disagreeing. Out comes the phrenology chart. This, you soon learn, is the salon's secret weapon, a head map divided into regions with labels like combativeness, amativeness, and self-esteem. Your beautician pokes thoughtfully at your scalp, as if searching for the root cause of your subpar eyelashes. "You have a pronounced bump here," she announces. "That's a clear sign you would benefit from an invigorating cold cream and perhaps a brisk eyebrow pluck." You try not to flinch. She next produces a pamphlet with fancy type and at least 3 spelling errors per sentence, purporting to offer the latest theories in female allurement from Paris. It recommends everything from lemon baths to gentle applications of arsenic, depending on which region of your head is most disappointing. There's a diagram of a woman smiling bravely as a beautician applies a rejuvenating electric current to her cheek. The model's hair appears to be standing straight up, but the caption assures you this is a sign of cellular vigor. You're asked a series of questions that blur the line between medicine, matchmaking, and social critique. Do you tend to blush easily? Have you ever dreamt of running away to the seaside? Do you find yourself troubled by envy, indigestion, or sudden urges to redecorate? Your answers are scribbled down as though they're vital medical clues. The implication is clear. Beauty is not simply achieved. It must be diagnosed, decoded, and delicately corrected, preferably with a product the salon sells for 6 times your weekly wage. The consultation is equal parts flattery and concern. "Oh, your skin has such character," she says, gently pressing your cheek. "It must be protected at all costs. We have a marvelous new lotion with extracts of snail, larkspur, and optimism. She recommends just a dab, morning and night, and a light dusting of rice powder when facing strong emotions or direct sunlight." The salon's assistant nods vigorously in the background, already scribbling out your invoice. As the interview winds down, she hands you a small hand mirror so you can witness your own potential. You're encouraged to see the possibilities, not the pores. She points out areas where your complexion is longing for improvement, as though your chin is writing a strongly worded letter to the manager. There's a gentle but firm assurance that with a combination of cold cream, courage, and weekly visits, you too can achieve the parlor glow currently reserved for porcelain dolls and the recently deceased. You leave the consultation portion feeling both subtly judged and oddly hopeful. After all, science, however imaginary, has spoken. your transformation is now inevitable, or at the very least, you'll be slightly poorer and a lot more powdered by the end of the day. In the Victorian salon, the only certainty is that you'll never quite look at your own forehead the same way again. As you wait, perched on a velvet chair, you overhear conversations about the latest scandals, secret tonics, and who fainted during their last eyebrow shaping. You're surrounded by antimacassars, doilies, and a growing sense of doom. The room itself is a masterpiece of Victorian clutter, every horizontal surface draped with embroidered runners, every cushion protected by a tiny square of lace, and every table threatening to collapse under the collective weight of tea trays and cautionary tales. A massive fern looms in the corner, quietly filtering the air of whatever chemical concoctions are currently wafting through from the treatment rooms. Overhead, the chandelier flickers unsteadily, as if even the gas lights are nervous. There's a code to salon waiting room behavior, and you're learning it by osmosis. First, you must never sit too comfortably. No one truly relaxes here. Everyone is perpetually half poised for escape, half paralyzed by the prospect of being next. You grip the arms of your chair, doing your best not to snag your dress on an overzealous fringe or accidentally displace an antimacassar, an unforgivable faux pas that might haunt your reputation until next season. The other clients size you up with the practiced efficiency of seasoned duelists. Glances flit from your hemline to your hatpins, then up to your eyebrows, weighing the evidence. Are you a salon veteran, here for a routine complexion enhancement, or a trembling newcomer about to learn the hard way that the invigorating face slap is not a metaphor? Small talk is a weapon wielded with precision. Nearby, two matrons discuss the fate of Lady Witherspoon's niece, who reportedly suffered a fainting spell, so dramatic during her last depilatory treatment that the fire brigade was summoned, mostly to help untangle her from her own petticoats. Another group debates the efficacy of Miss Primble's invisible freckle tonic, said to be distilled from the tears of Belgian nuns and only mildly explosive. Every other story ends with someone being much improved, simply transformed, or now living quietly in the country. Between the whispers and gasps, a tray of tea and limp sponge cakes makes the rounds, the cups rattling softly in their saucers. You accept a cup, hoping the weak, grey liquid inside might steady your nerves, but it mostly tastes like boiled linen and anticipation. The cakes are so dry you fear they might suck all the moisture out of your skin, a risk the beauticians would probably claim is part of the service. Time in the waiting room is elastic. It stretches on as you listen to an elderly lady in a tartan shawl recount the day she nearly lost both her dignity and her eyebrows to an overzealous apprentice wielding cold wax and no mercy. On the other side of the room, a nervous debutante is reading the rules for proper posture for the third time, carefully aligning herself with the diagram, only to be nudged by her mother whenever she slouches below maximum marriageability. Even the decor is in on the anxiety. Portraits of unsmiling women stare down from the wallpaper, their cheeks improbably pale, hair gleaming, and expressions frozen somewhere between aspiration and regret. You wonder if they too spent hours marinating in this same fragrant suspense, wondering if it's better to have a slightly crooked nose or a beautician determined to correct it. And always, the conversation comes back to remedies and recipes. Someone boasts about the new Parisian dew treatment, which apparently requires a sunrise walk and a willingness to smear your face with slugs. Someone else swears by vinegar rinses for hair so shiny it could signal ships. The talk is half advertisement, half warning. Every miracle cure is also a cautionary tale. As your name is finally called, you rise, knees creaking, carefully smoothing your skirt and patting down the antimacassar you'd disturbed. The waiting room eyes follow you. Will you return improved, or will you be the next legend whispered about over teacups and dry cake? There's only one way to find out. Good luck. The salon apprentice begins your relaxing scalp massage. It's less a massage and more an enthusiastic kneading, somewhere between bread making and an exorcism. At first, it seems harmless. Fingers gently parting your hair, thumbs working circles at your temples. You dare to close your eyes, telling yourself to enjoy this rare moment of pampering. But relaxation is short-lived. The apprentice, fresh from a lecture on the invigorating powers of manual stimulation, seems determined to awaken every follicle and perhaps even a few ancestors. Her hands move with the conviction of someone wringing out laundry by hand, each pass lifting you a half-inch off the chair. The room fills with the rhythmic squeak of boots on parquet and the faint but unmistakable sound of scalp protesting its treatment. This is not merely a beauty ritual, this is Victorian science at work. Healthy hair requires healthy circulation, the apprentice explains, as if she's been waiting all morning to test this theory on an unsuspecting head. She peppers her movements with facts from the latest magazines, something about how a properly massaged scalp can cure brain fatigue, prevent hair loss, and possibly realign your soul. You nod, mostly to avoid offending the person with their hands on your cranium. A warm oil is drizzled across your scalp. Imported from the Indies, the apprentice claims, though you'd wager it's just last week's olive oil with a hint of lavender to disguise the evidence. She rubs it in with alarming vigor, working up a frictional heat that could probably fry an egg. Somewhere in the process, she locates a knot of hair and sets about undoing it with the subtlety of a cat untying Christmas lights. You wince, but before you can protest, she clucks her tongue sympathetically. Tension, I see. That must be from excess thought. Happens to the best of us. Around you, other clients are receiving similar treatment, their faces caught between grim endurance and a kind of meditative detachment. One woman is gripping her chair so tightly you can see her knuckles through her gloves. Another has slipped into a trance state, eyes glazed, possibly reliving all her worst childhood haircuts at once. It's communal, in a way, an entire room sharing in the strange intimacy of someone else's fingernails attempting to improve you. There's a rhythm to it. Slow circles, then faster, then a series of brisk karate chop motions along your hairline. Occasionally, the apprentice pauses to comb a section of hair and count your living strands, an act performed with the solemnity of a priest tallying sins. Such thick hair, she says approvingly, though you suspect she says this to everyone, including the balding accountant currently waiting by the door. As the massage continues, a faint tingling spreads from your scalp to your toes. That's the life returning to your roots, you're told, as if your hair has spent the last week in exile. There's no mention of the mild whiplash, the static electricity crackling in the air, or the growing suspicion that your scalp will need a support group when this is over. Occasionally, the head beautician passes by, surveying the apprentice's handiwork with a sharp eye. More vigor, she instructs, and the kneading intensifies, each movement more determined to drive all stress, and perhaps consciousness, out the top of your head. By the time the apprentice finally relents, your hair is standing at creative new angles, oil glistens at your roots, and you feel at once wide awake and vaguely violated. Was it relaxing? Not in any way the Victorians would have understood, but your scalp is now the most alert organ in your body. In the world of Victorian beauty, that counts as a victory. You are declared ready for your next ordeal, treatment. Congratulations on surviving the relaxing scalp massage. You're now one step closer to fashionable, whether your nerves agree or not. Victorian hair washing is a rare and ceremonial event involving rainwater, egg yolk, and, if you're truly brave, borax. Your scalp isn't ready for this, but neither is your hairdresser's plumbing. The experience begins with a whispered consultation, as though you've just requested something unspeakably daring. In an era where bathing more than once a month is considered reckless, suggesting a full hair wash in public is on par with announcing plans to fly a hot air balloon over Buckingham Palace. The salon staff gather their courage, assemble their supplies, and, after a brief, silent prayer, prepare to do battle. First, the water. Tap water is unthinkable. It's either too hard, too full of impurities, or most likely, simply unavailable. Instead, your attendant has a pitcher of precious rainwater, collected lovingly from the garden barrel, strained through cheesecloth, and carried as though it's vintage champagne. You can practically hear the silent judgment from every woman in the waiting room who's still using melted snow or the odd dab of leftover tea. Next, the pre-wash ritual. Anointing your scalp with a mixture of oil and cologne, both to loosen the dirt and to mask the faint aroma of last month's adventures. Your hair is brushed, 100 strokes at a minimum, as prescribed by every beauty manual and at least 3 worried grandmothers. The brush itself is a relic, bristles worn thin, each pass producing enough static electricity to power a small telegraph. Finally, the washing itself. The salon's washing chair is a marvel of design, if your idea of marvels includes waterlogged upholstery and a backrest that tilts at precisely the wrong angle. A basin is positioned beneath your head, and you're instructed to lean back, eyes skyward, while your hairdresser pours a slow, deliberate stream of cold rainwater directly onto your scalp. It runs down your neck, under your collar, and, if you're unlucky, down your back. Invigorating, isn't it? Says the hairdresser, with the expression of someone offering unsolicited advice about saunas. Now for the soap. Except, of course, it's not soap at all. Victorian shampoos are a patchwork of household ingredients. If you're fortunate, you'll receive a mixture of egg yolk and lemon juice, whipped to a froth and then lovingly smeared across your scalp. If you're less fortunate, today is the day they try borax, a substance better known for scrubbing floors than washing heads. The smell is somewhere between picnic salad and chemical warfare, and the sensation is unforgettable. The hairdresser works the mixture through your locks with enthusiasm, pausing occasionally to assure you that this method was highly recommended in the Ladies' Companion for 1874. You are now a sticky, dripping monument to the power of peer pressure and historical hygiene. Once the lather, such as it is deemed sufficient, there's a painstaking rinse, another round of rainwater trickling down your ears, and the constant threat of a stray egg yolk making a bid for freedom across your cheek. The basin is emptied, carefully, so as not to disrupt the delicate plumbing, which has survived precisely 0 Victorian innovations and only 2 hair washings a week. Towels are summoned, not soft, fluffy ones, but the Victorian sort, thin, scratchy, and designed mostly for character building. Your head is scrubbed with the intensity of someone shining a brass candlestick for inspection by the Queen. You're glowing already, the hairdresser proclaims, as your hair steams gently in the chilly air. The ordeal ends, finally, with a cloud of violet-scented powder and a lecture about not repeating this too soon, perhaps in another month, once your scalp has forgiven you and the plumbing has recovered. You're left feeling equal parts invigorated and traumatized. Your hair squeaky clean and suspiciously fluffy. Victorian hair washing. An event so memorable, you'll be talking about it until it's time for the next one. Natural ingredients, your stylist says, mixing up a concoction that smells like an alchemist's failed experiment. Your eyes are watering, but apparently that's how you know it's working. You watch in horror as she reaches for a glass jar labelled ammonia for livelier locks, and a brown paper packet of washing soda that looks like it's just been smuggled in from the general store's cleaning aisle. There's also, for reasons never fully explained, a generous helping of grated raw onion. For shine, she assures you. You're pretty sure the only thing that will shine is the gleam in her eyes as she watches your hair's will to live slowly ebb away. With great ceremony, she stirs the ingredients into a greyish paste that could double as medieval cork. The aroma blooms in the air, sharp, biting, and enough to clear your sinuses for the next calendar year. It's the kind of scent that lingers long after you've left the building, possibly haunting the next 3 generations of your family. You try not to make a face, but it's hard to look serene when your entire respiratory tract is staging a mutiny. The stylist smears the mixture onto your scalp with practiced confidence, her hands moving quickly, no hesitation, no apology. You steel yourself as the first wave of cool, stinging ammonia touches your skin. It tingles in a way that is, at best, alarming and, at worst, reminiscent of a bee sting. That's how you know it's cleansing, she says, If it didn't tingle, it wouldn't work. This logic is less than reassuring. But you nod gamely, because questioning a Victorian beautician in the middle of a chemical experiment seems like a poor life choice. The mixture is massaged in with forceful enthusiasm, ensuring every inch of scalp is fully saturated with the scent of a Victorian apothecary floor. Natural is a broad category, you realize, one that encompasses everything from eggs and herbs to industrial cleaning agents and household vegetables. Victorian beauty, it turns out, is not for the faint of heart or sensitive of nostril. As the shampoo sits, your stylist wraps your head in a steaming towel to activate the ingredients. This too is supposed to be soothing, though it feels more like an interrogation technique. The heat intensifies the aroma, and you begin to suspect you could be used to repel moths or possibly fumigate a small shed. Meanwhile, the stylist regales you with stories of past clients, Mrs. Tiddle, who swore by onions for hair growth and now can't enter polite society without being trailed by neighbourhood cats, Miss Eglantine, whose hair was so lifted by soda and ammonia that she nearly floated away at last season's garden party. There's a pause while the timer ticks down, the prescribed 8 to 10 minutes for optimal transformation. You try not to sneeze. The other clients in the salon cast glances your way, some sympathetic, some a little smug, as though relieved it isn't their turn for the house special blend. Rinse time arrives, the towel is whipped off, and a basin of cold water is poured over your head with the same energy as baptizing a particularly unruly goat. The liquid runs in rivulets down your neck and into the folds of your clothing. You gasp, but your stylist beams. See? Already healthier, she says, as you catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror, hair standing on end, cheeks pink from the ammonia, and an aura that can best be described as vivacious with notes of vinaigrette. Your head feels lighter, your scalp is tingling, and your hair emits a faint but persistent fragrance that could double as a warning signal for at least 3 blocks. But in the world of Victorian salons, pain and pungency are simply part of the process. You thank your stylist, pay up, and step out with naturally cleaned hair, ready to face the next bizarre chapter in the pursuit of beauty, hoping the wind is blowing away from you. Now for the main event. The curling tongs. Heated in an open flame, they reach temperatures suitable for blacksmithing. You pray your hair survives, or at least that you keep your ears. You watch as your stylist, undaunted, plunges the iron rods directly into the heart of a crackling gas jet. There's a brief moment of suspense, the quiet before the sizzle, where you wonder if she's forging horseshoes or preparing to launch a steampunk revolution. With the solemnity of a priest handling holy relics, she plucks the tongs from the flame, tests them briefly on a scrap of paper, which promptly smokes and curls into oblivion, and nods with satisfaction. "Just right," she says, as if describing a loaf of bread and not a potential fire hazard. Victorian curling tongs are less a beauty tool and more a test of faith. There's no heat gauge, no protective glove, no cool tip. There is only red-hot metal, the trembling hope of fashion, and the eternal question. Will you look like a Grecian goddess? Or will this end with you running out of the salon, head ablaze, as future generations recount your tale as a warning to others? She parts your hair with a wooden comb, one that's seen too many battles, and winds a section around the tongs with a delicacy that belies the terror lurking behind your eyes. You hold perfectly still. Moving is not an option. One ill-timed sneeze, and you'll sport an avant-garde ear for the rest of the season. As she presses the iron to your hair, a small wisp of smoke rises. The scent of singed keratin mingles with rosewater and panic. Perfectly normal, your stylist reassures you. It means it's working. This seems to be the salon's universal mantra, equally applicable to ammonia shampoos and mild electrical burns. With each curl, the room fills with tension, and not just in your hair. The other clients look on in awe and apprehension, quietly tallying their own number of curl casualties. Tales of burnt bangs and vanished fringes circulate like urban legends. One woman still wears a bonnet in June, claiming it's for the sun, but everyone knows she once lost half her hair to an overly enthusiastic apprentice with a shaky hand and a blazing hot tongue. Time slows as each section is wound, pressed, and released, the iron hissing slightly as it meets the cool salon air. Your stylist works with swift confidence, occasionally pausing to tap the tongs on her apron, check the temperature, and maybe even mutter a brief prayer. You can almost hear your hair protesting, tiny, desperate squeaks only audible to those in imminent danger of fashion. Inevitably, there are casualties. A split end here, a scorched tip there, and at least one curl that springs away like a startled mouse, never to be tamed again. No worry, we'll pin that one back, your stylist chirps, already plotting a creative updo to hide the evidence. In the Victorian era, every hairstyle is part fashion statement, part cover-up. Once your head is fully curled, the final phase begins. Arranging the curls into elaborate shapes with a small arsenal of pins, ribbons, and sheer force of will. Each curl is coaxed, pleaded with, and occasionally threatened into place. The finished result, voluminous, intricate, and just a little crispy, elicits murmurs of approval from the salon crowd. You're handed a mirror. The reflection is dazzling, in a mildly dangerous sort of way. Your hair gleams, curled to perfection, radiating heat and confidence in equal measure. As you rise, neck a little stiff, you realize you've survived the curling tong gauntlet. Your hair is only slightly singed, your ears remain unscathed, and you've gained a new respect for the bravery required by Victorian beauty. And if the wind blows just right, you'll carry the faint scent of roasted ambition for the rest of the day. In the world of Victorian salons, sometimes the greatest fashion statement is simply making it out in one piece. Forget your light-holed mousse. It's time for bear grease, castor oil, and a scent best described as barnyard chic. You're sticky, glossy, and slightly flammable. The jars line the salon's counter, each with a handwritten label that may or may not match its actual contents. Sublime pomatum, purest unguent, and Mr. Belling's refined bear essence. There's an air of mystery about which one you'll be assigned, perhaps determined by your phrenology chart, perhaps by how much you tipped last time. The stylist unscrews a jar with a practiced twist and dips in 2 fingers, emerging with a glob of something the consistency of axle grease and the aroma of an enthusiastic petting zoo. With all the gravitas of a pharmacist concocting a life-saving elixir, she warms the pomade between her palms, then proceeds to smooth it over your freshly curled, already traumatized hair. There's a sticky squelch as she works the fat through each lock, pressing down stray hairs, tamping back flyaways, and, by the looks of it, constructing a weatherproof coating suitable for Arctic expeditions. It's not just about style, it's about survival. In the unpredictable British climate, only the well-greased endure. You try not to flinch as the heavy ointment works its way onto your scalp, sinking in like a slow-moving oil spill. The experience is, at best, disconcerting. At worst, you suspect your head is now a fire risk. Victorian pomades were nothing if not ambitious. They promised shine, strength, and the ability to outlast both storms and social humiliation. Whether or not they delivered on these claims is up for debate. What's certain is that you'll be leaving a little bit of yourself on every headrest, pillow, and carriage seat for weeks to come. It isn't just bare fat on the menu. The Victorians are nothing if not creative in their approach to hair care. There's macassar oil, an import from the far reaches of the British Empire, guaranteed to add gloss and, incidentally, stain anything within a 3-foot radius. There's castor oil for that coveted wet look, as well as beef marrow for body and bounce, and lanolin, straight from the sheep's back to yours. Each promises miracles. Most deliver only commitment. As the stylist continues her vigorous application, she shares helpful tips. A dab of pomade, dear, every morning, never more than a walnut's worth, unless you wish to frighten the horses. You nod, making a mental note to avoid open flames and high winds for the foreseeable future. Meanwhile, the room begins to smell increasingly like a menagerie, with faint undertones of rosemary, lavender, and desperation, perfume to cover the earthy scent of animal fat, but not quite enough. For the ambitious, there are additional options: scented pomades, colored greases, and even glittering powders for special occasions. On Queen Victoria's birthday, you might emerge from the salon sparkling faintly, like a decorative ham at a royal banquet. The less fortunate, or those with sensitive noses, simply resign themselves to smelling like livestock for the duration of the social season. But make no mistake, in Victorian society, shiny hair is more than a personal triumph. It's a public proclamation of health, vigor, and access to the finest bear carcasses money can buy. Every glossy curl is a rebuke to the elements, every sticky strand a testament to your commitment to beauty. No matter how many towels you ruin or how many footmen have to reupholster your carriage, by the time the stylist is done, your hair gleams like polished marble under the gaslights, locked into a state somewhere between regal and dangerous. You give yourself a cautious pat, hands gliding off the slick surface. You're ready to face the world, rain, wind, society gossips, and any passing wolves who might mistake you for a cousin. Because in the Victorian salon, beauty is fleeting, but shine is forever, at least until your next wash, sometime next month. The latest Parisian craze is a delicate fringe. Your stylist bravely snips, but scissors are blunt, and your new look is somewhere between sheepdog and nervous governess. You had only vaguely heard the word fringe uttered at the last charity luncheon, whispered with an air of danger and French sophistication. Rumour has it that all the most daring women in Paris are wearing their hair short across the brow, something between a bold statement and a minor scandal. It frames the eyes, says one pamphlet. It frames the disaster, mutters your stylist as she positions you beneath the unforgiving light of the salon's biggest window. The scissors she wields have clearly seen better centuries. They are the kind passed down through generations, dulled by years of petticoat trimming and occasionally light gardening. There is no satisfying snip, just a series of strained crunches as the blades attempt to assert dominance over your hair. Hold still, your stylist says, as if you dream of fleeing in the middle of such a transformative moment. The first clump of hair drops onto your lap with the same weight as your growing anxiety. Bangs are not merely a style, they are a leap of faith. In the Victorian era, such a look flirts with social peril. For some, a fringe says rebellious continental spirit. For others, it screams failed attempt to copy a French actress after one too many sherries. You glance around at the other clients. Some peer over the tops of their magazines, feigning indifference but watching with the intensity of court stenographers. Everyone knows that what happens here today may set the standard or serve as a cautionary tale for the entire season. Halfway through the operation, your stylist pauses to reassess. "It's coming along," she says, voice bright but eyes darting. The mirror tells another story. One side is feathered, the other blunt, and an errant cowlick has decided to take center stage. Another tentative snip, another uncertain glance, and the transformation continues. You try to channel the calm of a Parisian muse, but mostly resemble someone who has just woken up in the stables. The salon's fringe chart is produced, offering illustrations of ideal bang lengths for every possible face shape, none of which resemble the situation currently unfolding atop your forehead. You're measured, compared, and comforted. It will soften, you're told, with time and a hat. To help, your stylist applies a touch of pomade, slicking the ends into a downward curve meant to evoke elegance but giving strong undertones of sheepdog after rain. There's a ripple of conversation as you're shown the result. One client tries to reassure you, "It's so modern," while another mumbles something about the bravery of trying new things. You sense that you have become the evening's main event, your fringe the talk of future garden parties. The salon's owner steps over to inspect. She gives a regal nod, very Parisian. You're not sure if it's a compliment or a legal disclaimer. The maintenance advice arrives next. Brush daily, pin at night, and never, under any circumstances, let it dry naturally. You're handed a tiny fringe comb and a prayer. There are vague promises that the shape will settle, and fashion is meant to be daring. You're told to embrace the soft, mysterious look, which seems to involve tilting your head at a very specific angle to avoid exposing the uneven bits. As you rise to leave, the fringe sways slightly, settling somewhere between adorable and eccentric. The world outside will see you as either a trendsetter or a cautionary monument to Parisian hubris. Either way, you have entered the dangerous world of Victorian hair innovation, a place where bangs are born, reputations are made, and, occasionally, hats are worn very, very low on the brow. Congratulations, you are the proud owner of a Victorian fringe. May it bring you character, conversation, and a convenient excuse to buy new bonnets. Eyebrow beauty is not for the faint-hearted. You can have them plucked, shaved, penciled in with lampblack, or simply replaced with strips of mouse fur. Yes, really. You stare at your reflection, forehead tensed in anticipation. The stylist, armed with tweezers that look more like miniature torture devices, leans in. A well-groomed brow is the sign of a refined mind, she murmurs, quoting a beauty manual that conveniently ignores the existence of pain. The first pluck is a revelation, a tiny zap of discomfort, followed by a silent prayer that you won't sneeze. In Victorian salons, stoicism is expected. Any yelp louder than a mouse is met with knowing glances and, if you're unlucky, a pamphlet on moral fortitude. Eyebrows in this era are a battleground. To pluck or not to pluck is the question, though fashion dictates the answer. The preferred look is soft, slim, and delicate, barely arched, and always faint. Some stylists advocate for total eradication. Out come the razors, and off comes the brow, leaving you with a blank canvas and the haunting resemblance of a startled porcelain doll. For those with nerves of steel, shaving is followed by dusting the brow bone with a pale powder, which is said to encourage regrowth and repel envy. You're not sure about the science, but the logic is very Victorian. If your natural brows survive the Great Purge, they are then meticulously shaped, snipped, combed, and gently coaxed into formation. For anyone with patchy or uninspiring brows, or, let's face it, for anyone over the age of 22, artificial enhancements are in order. Enter lampblack, the era's universal pigment, a sooty residue scraped from oil lamps, mixed with a drop of rosewater and applied with a fine brush. The result? A soft, smoky brow that lasts until your next tearful encounter with a strong wind or disappointing scone. But the pièce de résistance, reserved for the truly bold or those with salons too close to a rodent infestation, is the mouse fur brow. Strips of fine, dark mouse pelt are trimmed to shape, glued delicately above the eyes, and fluffed with a tiny comb. No one will ever know, the stylist says confidently, ignoring the fact that your new eyebrows quiver every time you exhale. There are whispered stories of socialites whose brows slipped mid-waltz, trailing down their cheeks like furry tears, or landed in a teacup at an inopportune moment. These cautionary tales do little to dampen the fashion's popularity. After all, nothing says elegance like having your eyebrows double as conversation starters and potential party favors. Eyebrow pencils, when available, are not for the uninitiated. Made from a blend of charcoal, beeswax, and bravado, they require a steady hand and a fearless heart. The ideal is symmetry, but reality, thanks to nerves, sneezes, and that one rogue mouse hair, usually lands closer to enthusiastically uneven. You reassure yourself that a quirky brow is a sign of wit, or at least a good sense of humor. Throughout the ordeal, your stylist offers wisdom. Remember, never trust a woman whose brows are thicker than her patience, she says, smoothing your forehead with a dab of rosewater. She assures you that, should disaster strike, a quick application of powder and a lace veil will hide all sins. The salon's owner swings by for an inspection, offers an approving nod, and slips you a flyer for the latest brow-fortifying tonic, a blend of castor oil, rum, and optimism. You emerge from the brow chair, a new woman, part sculpture, part pioneer, and wholly uncertain whether you look mysterious or mildly surprised. But that's Victorian beauty for you, perilous, inventive, and always a bit absurd. You take comfort in the knowledge that, should your mouse fur slip, you'll simply be setting next week's trend. In a world where fashion changes with the tides, your eyebrows are now a beacon of courage, and maybe, just maybe, the talk of the town. For a porcelain complexion, Victorians reach for creams laced with lead and mercury. Your skin tingles, then burns, but you're told that means it's working. Spoiler, it isn't. The allure of a flawless alabaster face is strong, too strong perhaps, for the Victorian beauty industry to resist stuffing jars with whatever minerals, metals, or mystery powders they could find. Your beautician presents an assortment of creams, each with a flowery label promising youth renewed and blemishes banished, conveniently omitting any mention of nervous system collapse or slow poisoning. She scoops a pearl-sized dollop of a cream that glimmers ominously in the light. "Don't mind the aroma," she says. "It's the essence of purity." The scent is halfway between fresh laundry and an unventilated paint shop. Still, you steel yourself as she dots it across your cheeks, chin, and brow, massaging it in with brisk, practiced strokes. The sensation is at first cool, then icy, then uncomfortably warm, as if your face is attempting to warn you that it's being slowly embalmed. "Let it absorb," she instructs, stepping back to admire her handiwork. The other salon clients watch with a mixture of envy and relief that it isn't their turn. Victorian beauty was competitive, but not always a team sport. You can feel the cream pulling at your skin, a tightening that might once have been reassuring but now simply feels like the onset of rigor mortis. The lead in the cream, yes, lead, was once hailed as a miracle, able to whiten even the most stubbornly sun-kissed complexion. Mercury, meanwhile, was prized for its purifying properties, a charming way to say it will destroy your pores and possibly your sanity. You're handed a fan to aid absorption, which mostly serves to spread the fumes around the room and into the lungs of everyone within a 3-chair radius. The salon abounds with cautionary tales. There's Mrs. Arbuthnot, whose devotion to the famous Snow Maiden face cream ended with her skin so fragile she couldn't frown for an entire year, a fact her neighbours describe as both blessing and curse. Or young Miss Collingwood, who found herself glowing, quite literally at twilight after an enthusiastic round of mercury ointments. These stories are offered with the same tone one might use to discuss the weather. Grim, inevitable, and not worth complaining about if you value your reputation. You ask, timidly, about the tingling sensation turning to a dull ache on your cheeks. That's the beauty working its way in, your beautician assures you, her voice equal parts confidence and denial. Redness is just your youthful glow awakening. Redness is in fact the only guarantee. It will last for hours, days, or until you risk another miracle unguent to even things out. There are, for the desperate or wise, alternatives. Cucumber slices for soothing, though no one can remember the last time they actually soothed anything. Oatmeal masks, egg white compresses, and, if you're wealthy enough, imported French powders made from ground pearl or rice. None of these, however, have the allure of the forbidden fruit, the instant, dramatic, possibly life-shortening effects of Victorian chemical skincare. Your stylist leaves you to rest and let the transformation commence, tucking a towel around your neck to catch any drips. You close your eyes, pretending for a moment that you're a Grecian statue being lovingly restored, not a Victorian socialite slowly marinating in a science experiment. Around you, muffled gasps and gentle applause erupt as another client's mask is revealed, a radiant, ghostly pallor that would terrify any dermatologist. Eventually, the cream is wiped away, leaving your skin paler, tighter, and tinged with an aura of mild regret. Radiant, your beautician declares, handing you a mirror. You catch your reflection, wide-eyed, glowing, and only slightly radioactive, you offer a weak smile. In Victorian beauty, if your skin isn't tingling, burning, or lightly peeling, you're simply not trying hard enough. To keep your skin pale as moonlight, your beautician dusts you with rice powder and offers you arsenic wafers for that internal glow. If you're not glowing by morning, you might need a doctor. Pale skin isn't just a preference in the Victorian salon, it's the very foundation of social status. A fair complexion signals wealth, leisure, and the absolute certainty you've never worked outdoors or done anything as undignified as manual labor. The goal is a look somewhere between ethereal spirit and recently frightened. The methods? Well, those are another story. Your beautician whisks open a tiny lacquered box filled with rice powder so fine it drifts through the air in a ghostly cloud. Imported, she says, giving the box a little shake, as if summoning spirits. With a velvet puff, she begins patting the powder over your cheeks, nose, and forehead, layering it until your skin achieves that prized, translucent look like alabaster, or, if you're honest, a particularly sophisticated meringue. Every pat sends up a puff of powder, which settles not only on you, but on your dress, the table, and, you suspect, the nearest passing pigeon outside the window. Rice powder is the least alarming part of this routine. It smells faintly sweet, feels delightfully soft, and crucially, won't dissolve your skin barrier or make you hallucinate. But for those who crave a little more drama, the salon offers something bolder: arsenic wafers. Your stylist produces a delicate silver tin filled with paper, thin discs that glint in the lamplight. For internal radiance, she says, with all the calm confidence of someone offering a lemon drop. You hesitate. Are they safe? You ask, which in Victorian England is the kind of question that gets you labelled a warrior. Perfectly natural, she insists, which you're beginning to realise is Victorian code for chemically reckless. With a flutter of encouragement, she slips one onto your tongue. It tastes of nothing, which is possibly for the best. Arsenic clears the complexion, brightens the eyes, and ensures you'll never be mistaken for a milkmaid, she adds. What it also ensures, according to certain medical pamphlets, is a spectrum of side effects ranging from mild stomach upset to requires the attention of a clergyman. The rice powder routine continues, dusted and layered, until you're certain your face could be used as a projection screen at the Royal Academy. If you sneeze, it's all over. Your stylist leans in, and remember, avoid strong emotion for the next hour. Frowns cause creasing, smiles break the powder, and tears, well, tears are simply unacceptable. You're not sure whether this is beauty advice or a broader critique of Victorian emotional life. The other clients eye your transformation with envy and perhaps a touch of concern. Some are veterans, already nibbling their own wafers while debating the merits of bismuth powder versus plain rice. Others exchange tips. Swallow with tea for best results, one whispers while another confides, never combine with vinegar, trust me. In the corner, an older lady recalls the tragic tale of her cousin, whose enthusiasm for complexion enhancers led to a week spent glowing like a bedside lantern. Of course, for those unwilling to risk pharmaceutical-grade pallor, the salon offers a palette of alternatives. Chalk-based powders, pearl dust, and the ever-popular flour, which doubles as both face powder and cake ingredient. None of these, however, deliver the thrill of the forbidden, arsenic siren call to those who desire radiance at any cost. The session ends with a cloud of powder, a congratulatory smile, and a gentle reminder to keep out of the rain. You glance in the mirror, finding yourself transformed, luminous, fragile, and ever so, slightly radioactive. Will you be the talk of the town, or merely the subject of whispered concern? Either way, you're officially a vision of Victorian beauty. Proof that sometimes, looking glowing just means you need to lie down and sip weak tea until the room stops spinning. To add colour to your face, you're dabbed with rouge containing everything from carmine beetles to brick dust. A little goes a long way, unless you sneeze, in which case, all bets are off. Nothing says Victorian health like the suspiciously ruddy glow of someone who hasn't seen the sun since the last cholera outbreak. Pale skin is fashionable, but a hint of pink, essential. You want just enough colour to suggest robust good health, but not so much that anyone suspects you've been walking briskly, eating fresh fruit, or otherwise risking the family's reputation. Your beautician begins with a small pot of rouge, its contents as mysterious as the salon's plumbing. Imported from Paris, she announces, opening the lid with a flourish. The scent is sharp, part roses, part something vaguely metallic. She dips a rabbit's foot brush into the pot, then carefully dabs your cheeks, the tip of your nose, and even your earlobes. This is not simply makeup, it's alchemy, a delicate balance between just in from the countryside and just in from a four-alarm fire. The ingredients list reads like an inventory of a very determined apothecary. Carmine from crushed beetles for that deep, lustrous red, a pinch of brick dust for warmth, and, for the budget, conscious, a drop or two of beet juice, which stains your skin with the tenacity of an unpaid tax bill. The process is as much about chemistry as aesthetics. The rouge must be blended, never smeared, and never, under any circumstances, allowed to drift southward, lest you risk the dreaded mutton chop blush that haunts debutantes and dowagers alike. Application is a team sport. As your stylist works, she lectures on the dangers of overdoing it. A lady must never look as if she is trying to look well, she says, patting a little extra on your left cheek for balance, only as if she is naturally radiant at all times, even during funerals. She then hands you a tiny porcelain fan for blending and for emergencies. Emergencies, you soon learn, include sneezing, laughing, or the simple act of breathing too enthusiastically. If you're feeling daring or simply want to shock the vicar's wife, there are other options. Some clients swear by liquid rouges made with spirits of wine and red vegetable dyes, an exhilarating combination that stings and stains in equal measure. For those with sensitive skin or sensitive sensibilities, beet juice is the answer. It promises a natural flush and a faint whiff of salad. No matter your choice, the risk is the same. A moment's distraction, a sudden cough, and your healthy glow is suddenly redecorating your collar, your cuffs, or the unfortunate person sitting next to you. Around you, the waiting room is abuzz with tales of rouge, triumph, and disaster. There's the story of Miss Blenkinsop, whose overly ambitious application resulted in a complexion described as positively volcanic. Or Mrs. Dalton, who famously wept at her own wedding, streaking her cheeks with red rivers and leaving the guests debating whether it was passion or poor product choice. Still, rouge is more than a cosmetic. It's a social tool. Too little, and you risk looking ill, or worse, uninterested in the season's dances. Too much, and the whispers begin. Is she in mourning or just very fond of beetles? The perfect flush, of course, is as much about attitude as it is about pigment. You wear it with pride, shoulders back, ready to face society's judgments, and possibly its gardeners. In case you startle the roses, your transformation is complete. Your cheeks glow with a manufactured vitality. Your spirit with a quiet determination to avoid sneezing for the next 6 hours. In Victorian beauty, every dab of rouge is a reminder. Looking healthy is hard work, especially when it comes in a jar and might attract passing birds. You thank your stylist, clutch your blending fan, and march bravely into a world where your only real competition for healthiest flush is the local beetroot harvest. Lush lashes are a must. You can opt for homemade mascara, Vaseline and soot, or have false lashes glued to your eyelids using spirit gum and hope. Victorian beauty holds eyelashes in the highest esteem, second only, perhaps, to the moral purity of one's cuticles. The beauty manuals of the era insist that nothing conveys innocence, virtue, and the faint suggestion of constant surprise quite like a pair of impossibly long, dark lashes. Your stylist eyes you with a critical yet sympathetic air, as if calculating both your current lash count and your pain threshold. She produces a small tin of homemade mascara, which in reality is a mixture of Vaseline, when available, and soot scraped lovingly from the salon's gas lamps. She demonstrates the process. Dip a brush, sometimes a stiff bristle, sometimes a handy toothpick, into the dark paste and wiggle it at the roots of your lashes. The Vaseline gives a glistening, slightly sticky finish, while the soot promises colour and, if you're not careful, mild respiratory issues. "Close your eyes, dear," she instructs. You do, silently praying you won't open them to find your lashes stuck together in a state of permanent, surprised alarm. As the mascara is applied, you're told not to blink, lest you smudge the masterpiece across your cheeks, forehead, or, in one famous case, the salon cat who made the mistake of napping too close. The look is striking, lashes darkened, lengthened, and faintly glistening in the gaslight. The smell of scorched carbon drifts in the air, mixing with the previous segment's bare fat and arsenic, a true sensory adventure. But homemade mascara is only the beginning for the truly devoted. Victorian beauty entrepreneurs, always eager to push boundaries and salon liability insurance, offer the next frontier: false lashes. Not the discreet, fluttery kind found in modern drugstores, but handmade wonders fashioned from, brace yourself, actual human hair. Sometimes horsehair, if you're lucky. Sometimes, according to persistent rumour, borrowed from the back of a salon chair and a bit of imagination. Your stylist reveals a tiny envelope, inside which nestles a row of delicate, impossibly thin hairs, painstakingly stitched into a thread. Imported from Paris, she claims, though you suspect the source is far more local. She applies a dab of spirit gum, a sticky, pungent adhesive usually reserved for amateur theatre productions or desperate costume emergencies, directly to your eyelid. "Don't worry if it stings," she says, which is never a phrase one wants to hear mid-procedure. With steady hands, she presses the hair strip onto your lid, smoothing it carefully with the back of a comb. The sensation is not unlike being tickled by a sentient caterpillar. You're warned to keep your eyes closed for at least a minute, lest the lashes migrate northward and join your new fringe. A discreet hand mirror is produced for the big reveal. Your eyes look enormous, your lashes dramatic. Your expression somewhere between doe-eyed heroine and woman, surprised by tax audit. The results, when successful, are spectacular. Every flutter is a statement, every sideways glance a minor event. But false lashes come with their own set of risks. Spirit gum, if applied too liberally, may result in your eyelids refusing to part until next Tuesday. Some clients have been known to lose an entire set mid-dance, discovering it clinging to their cheek like an existential question. The salon keeps a stock of lace veils for such emergencies, and there's an unspoken code of discretion among the regulars. Of course, there's always the fallback of lampblack and spit, a quick fix for those running late to a ball or caught by surprise in a rainstorm. But whatever method you choose, the message is clear. In Victorian society, your lashes are your calling card. Bold, dramatic, and possibly hazardous to your vision, they're proof that beauty is fleeting. But embarrassment, at least, can be shared over tea. You leave the chair with lashes so lush you could sweep crumbs off the table. And as you blink, ever so carefully, you know you're ready to face the world, or at least the next eyebrow, raising scandal at the salon. Hair removal? There's a wax for that, if you don't mind scalds. Victorian depilatories involve boiled sugar, cloth strips, and enough pain to make you long for the modesty of mutton chops. You are not entirely sure how you ended up in this chair. Skirt bunched around your knees, a hopeful look on your face, and a bowl of bubbling sugar syrup on the table beside you. Perhaps you were inspired by tales of Egyptian queens, or perhaps you simply fell victim to the persuasive powers of your stylist, who assures you that smoothness is next to godliness. Either way, the path ahead is sticky, hot, and more perilous than you expected. The process begins with a brisk exfoliation, a vigorous rubbing of your skin with what appears to be a repurposed horse brush. To open the pores, your stylist says, pausing only to check for splinters. Your skin, now pink and slightly offended, is dusted with a mysterious powder and a layer of talc to ensure a smooth result. You eye the sugar mixture, now reaching a temperature that could sterilize surgical instruments, and wonder if you should have signed a waiver. The syrup, golden and thick, is spread across your leg, or arm, or, for the brave, upper lip, with a wooden spatula. It's warm, pleasant at first, until you realize that it's rapidly transitioning from delightful spa treatment to poured tar on the villagers. The stylist works quickly, smoothing the syrup into a thin layer and laying a strip of cloth atop it, pressing it firmly with the authority of someone who has done this 1,000 times and still finds it amusing. There's a brief moment of silence, a breath, perhaps a whispered prayer. Then, yank. The strip is pulled away with a sound not unlike a startled goose, taking with it a week's worth of hair, half your dignity, and any lingering trust you had in the process. You involuntarily yelp, a short, sharp noise that is met with knowing smiles from the other clients. Brave girl, one of them mouths, as you try to remember what skin felt like before this experiment began. And you're not finished. The process repeats. More syrup, more cloth, more sudden existential crises. The stylist hums a cheerful tune, unfazed by your white-knuckled grip on the armrests. In between rips, she shares advice for aftercare. Apply this soothing rosewater tonic. Avoid sunlight, friction, and, if possible, sudden movement for the next 3 days. You nod, eyes watering, secretly plotting to never move again. For those who cannot bear the thought of sugar wax, there are other, equally questionable Victorian alternatives. Depilatory creams featuring quicklime and arsenic, which promise smoothness but may also remove your will to live. Or the ever-popular tweezers, less dramatic, but enough to make you reconsider your relationship with natural beauty. There's always the option to simply embrace your hairiness, pull down your sleeves, and claim you're following the latest Parisian trend in luxurious arm warmth. Around you, the salon is alive with the stories of depilatory disasters. Tales of burns and blisters are recounted with pride, badges of honor in the ongoing war against body hair. One client, a veteran of the sugar wax, claims she once lost an entire eyebrow but gained the admiration of her bridge club. Another is said to have fainted, but only briefly, and insists the smoothness was worth it. By the end of the ordeal, your skin is glowing, partly from redness, partly from a kind of post-traumatic radiance. You are swaddled in bandages for protection, patted gently on the shoulder, and handed a complimentary fan to wave away your tears, or at least the sweat. You rise, gingerly, trying not to stick to your own petticoats, and vow to never judge mutton chops again. Congratulations, you've survived the Victorian depilatory debacle. You are smoother, braver, and, at least for a little while, utterly hairless. Wear it with pride, and remember, beauty is pain, but at least pain is memorable. Freckles are the enemy. Your beautician attacks them with lemon juice, ammonia, and lots of hope. The results are underwhelming, but at least your face smells like salad. You arrive at the freckle erasure station, a place where optimism outweighs scientific evidence, and citrus is weaponized in the name of beauty. Your stylist sizes up your complexion with the air of a detective at the scene of a particularly puzzling crime. "A little sun," she murmurs, as if your freckles are proof of a misspent youth. Perhaps an afternoon reading in the garden or, heaven forbid, walking outdoors without a lace parasol. The process is elaborate and entirely confident in its own futility. First comes a vigorous cleansing with rosewater, and for good measure, a dab of castile soap so fragrant it almost covers the whiff of dread in the air. You're gently patted dry, your skin now primed for what is generously called treatment. A lemon is sliced theatrically. Victorian beauty, after all, is nothing without a bit of drama. With brisk efficiency, your stylist rubs the cut lemon directly across your cheeks, nose, and brow, pausing only to squeeze a few drops into a mysterious porcelain bowl. "Acid dissolves freckles," she explains, despite a growing pile of evidence to the contrary and the mounting stinging sensation on your face. Next comes the ammonia, decanted from a blue glass vial with a flourish. She dabs it onto a cloth and presses it against your skin, eyes watering in solidarity. The smell is somewhere between a freshly cleaned hospital and a salad gone terribly wrong. You are told to hold still while the concoction does its magic. In reality, it mostly does its mischief. Your cheeks tingle, your eyes water, and your soul briefly leaves your body to consider a life with freckles and less citrus. To distract you, the stylist regales you with tales of success. A duchess whose freckles vanished after 6 weeks of nightly scrubbing, and possibly strategic application of rice powder, and a famous actress rumored to have bathed her entire face in sour milk every morning. Persistence is everything, your stylist assures you. You nod, silently grateful that yogurt isn't involved, at least not yet. After 10 long minutes, the lemon ammonia blend is rinsed away with yet more rose water, leaving your skin as pink as a June rose, and miraculously still dotted with every freckle you started with. Your stylist examines your cheeks, tilting your face toward the gaslight for better inspection. Much improved, she declares, with the bright confidence of someone who has never lost a beauty contest to a freckle. For those who find citrus lacking, there are always more aggressive solutions: vinegar rubs, sour buttermilk masks, and even the dreaded freckle-erasing potions from traveling peddlers, usually a mix of caustic chemicals and wishful thinking. The warnings about burns, blisters, and temporary blindness are recited like the fine print on a loan agreement, easily ignored until it's far too late. You look around and realize you're not alone. All around the salon, fellow clients are dabbing at their cheeks, holding mirrors up to the light and searching for signs of improvement. There are whispered rumors about a new electric freckle remover recently seen in Paris, involving a battery, a damp sponge, and more bravery than you currently possess. By the end, your skin is dewy, red, damp, tingling, and faintly luminous, not from any vanishing spots, but from the sheer determination of someone who has willingly been doused in fruit and ammonia for the promise of fleeting perfection. Your freckles, of course, remain steadfast, undimmed by anything short of winter or a heavy application of lead powder. You thank your stylist, cheeks glowing and face smelling faintly of vinaigrette. In the end, freckle erasure is less about results and more about the ritual, the promise that, with enough lemons and optimism, you too could be porcelain pale, and if not, at least you'll be the freshest face at afternoon tea. For deep cleansing, you're zipped into a wooden steaming cabinet, head sticking out, sweat pouring, and dignity melting. You're told it opens your pores. Mostly, it opens your pores to existential questions. The contraption itself is the stuff of both curiosity and mild nightmares. A lacquered pine box, about the size of a trunk, with a narrow seat and a large hole at the top for your head to emerge, blinking in confusion like a particularly bewildered tortoise. Your body, tucked inside, is shrouded in a thick towel and several layers of protective muslin, which may be intended to preserve modesty or simply prevent the user from making a hasty escape. As you're carefully settled inside, the beautician fusses with latches and straps, pulling the lid down until you're snug as a roast in Sunday's oven. Steam, generated by a mysterious copper contraption humming in the corner, hisses its way through a network of pipes and vents, filling the chamber with a fog so thick you half expect to see spectral Victorian ancestors floating by. The temperature rises steadily, inching from pleasantly balmy to boiling pudding, and soon beads of sweat are trickling down your spine, pooling beneath your corset. Very good for the complexion, you're assured, as your face takes on the sheen of a freshly polished apple. There's no modest way to experience this. Your arms are trapped at your sides, your legs go numb, and you're left to contemplate your choices, your pause, and perhaps the folly of human vanity. Around you, the faint echo of water droplets and the creak of wood make up the soundtrack of your slow transformation. The beautician, ever vigilant, peeks in every few minutes to pat your brow and offer words of encouragement. You're flushing beautifully. Or remember, the more you sweat, the purer your soul. She occasionally adjusts a vent to allow a puff of rosewater or chamomile essence into the box, briefly masking the underlying aroma of damp wool and mild panic. Time slows to a crawl inside the steaming cabinet. Minutes stretch into small eternities as you count the number of curls falling onto your forehead, or invent imaginary conversations with the other heads bobbing from nearby boxes. The room feels like a Victorian fever dream, a surreal landscape of floating heads, flushed cheeks, and periodic sighs as clients are rotated in and out of their pine prisons. Of course, there are hazards. Some clients have been known to swoon from the heat, requiring a dash of smelling salts and the quick intervention of a robust maid. Others emerge so limp and pink they resemble boiled lobsters, clutching their petticoats and muttering about the dangers of overexertion. One bold lady reportedly lost consciousness entirely and had to be rolled out on a tea trolley, wrapped in towels like an overcooked sausage. You are warned to hydrate after your ordeal, though the refreshments provided, tepid barley water or a cup of weak lemon tea, offer little consolation. Your stylist insists on a final cold water splash to seal the pause, a bracing experience that leaves you both invigorated and alarmed. You're handed a fan and told to recline while your skin recovers its equilibrium. If you're lucky, your hair will refluff, your limbs will return to normal, and you'll only have minor trauma from the sensation of being gently poached. Yet there's an odd sense of accomplishment. You've endured the Victorian sauna, survived your journey through the steamy underworld, and emerged with skin glistening, pores presumably open, and just enough dignity to get dressed again. You rejoin the world of the upright, a little sweatier, a little wiser, and perhaps, just perhaps, a tiny bit cleaner. In the great saga of Victorian beauty, this is one ritual you'll never forget, no matter how hard you try. The quest for a winning smile means brushing with chalk, scrubbing with charcoal. Or, if you're ambitious, dabbling in a bit of nitric acid. Tooth enamel is optional. Your beautician invites you to the Oral Perfection Corner, a nook decorated with faded advertisements for dentifrices and bottles with faded labels promising pearl white teeth in 5 days, or your money back if you survive. A set of gleaming false teeth on a velvet cushion sits nearby as both inspiration and warning. You can't help but notice that they look suspiciously large for any human mouth. The process begins gently enough. You're handed a stiff-bristled brush and a paper-wrapped stick of white chalk. For that true porcelain gleam, your stylist says, as if you're a fine china plate about to go on display. You dutifully rub the chalk along your teeth, the powder settling into every crevice and producing a sensation not unlike chewing on a classroom blackboard. The flavor is distinct, dusty, oddly metallic, and sure to linger long after the first smile. If chalk isn't enough, there's always charcoal. The stylist produces a tin of finely ground charcoal, as black as a Victorian morning dress and about as forgiving. You dip your brush, give it a cautious tap, and begin scrubbing with enthusiasm. The effect is dramatic. Your mouth fills with an inky foam, and for a few alarming moments, you resemble a villain in a Gothic novel. The result? Teeth that are, in theory, a shade lighter, though you may spend the next week picking charcoal from your molars. Then comes the pièce de résistance. Nitric acid. Reserved for only the bravest or most desperate clients. This miracle solution promises instant whitening and invigorating tingle. The stylist, wielding a glass dropper with the reverence of an alchemist, applies a single drop to your brush. "Careful, dear," she cautions. "Don't let it touch the gums, or the tongue, or, ideally, the teeth for more than a moment." You nod, lips pursed in terror, and gingerly brush the acid across your enamel. It fizzles, tingles, and for a split second, you wonder if you'll have any teeth left for supper. The room is alive with the rituals of dental daring. One client boasts about her twice-weekly brick dust polish, guaranteed to remove stains, enamel, and any hope of comfortable chewing. Another recommends the vinegar rinse, which promises shine but delivers only a suspiciously hollow sensation. Still another swears by rubbing the teeth with cuttlefish bone, for that hint of oceanic sparkle and a persistent taste of regret. Your stylist offers tips for maintaining your new, blindingly white smile. Avoid red wine, black tea, and, if possible, smiling at all. For those who insist on indulging in forbidden pleasures, there are special tooth cloths, think glorified napkins, for discreet post-meal polishing. If all else fails, simply close your mouth and nod mysteriously, a look that is, coincidentally, very on trend. In the mirror, you inspect the results. Your teeth are, indeed, brighter, though whether from actual whitening or the blinding effect of lingering chalk dust is anyone's guess. Your mouth tingles, your tongue feels mildly alarmed, and your gums are issuing vague legal threats. Still, you cannot help but grin. Just a little. After all, in Victorian beauty, every risk is an adventure, and every smile a triumph. You thank your stylist, take a final swig of tepid barley water to rinse away the evidence, and make a mental note to avoid lemons, licorice, and any beauty advice involving household cleaning agents for at least a fortnight. As you rejoin the world, your teeth gleam dangerously in the gaslight, a testament to your bravery, questionable choices, and the enduring quest for a smile that could stop a horse, or at the very least, silence a room. Victorian manicures involve lemon juice, metal files, and a pink polish made from carmine beetles. You leave with nails so shiny you could signal passing ships. The nail care station is tucked away at the back of the salon, its tables arrayed with a bewildering collection of files, sticks, tiny scissors, and mysterious little pots. Here, nails are not merely an afterthought, but a proclamation, short, clean, delicately rounded, and buffed until they could double as emergency mirrors for Morse code or self-reflection. Your manicurist greets you with a smile both professional and slightly mischievous. She assesses your hands, frowning sympathetically at your cuticles and clicking her tongue at any sign of ink stains or gardening mishaps. "We'll have them looking respectable in no time," she declares, already reaching for a lemon and a wickedly sharp file. First, a soaking. Your hands are immersed in a shallow bowl of warm water, scented with rose and lavender, meant to soften both skin and resolve. After a suitable wait, just long enough for your mind to wander to the perils of cuticle care, she pats your hands dry and begins her work. The metal file is wielded with the precision of a violinist, each pass creating tiny puffs of nail dust and the faintest whiff of ozone. A gentle touch, she assures you, as you try not to wince. Never file in both directions. That's how splits begin, and then where would we be? Next, lemon juice. She slices a fresh lemon and presses it to your fingertips, promising to whiten and strengthen. The juice stings in every unseen paper cut, but you're told the pain is proof of progress. A dab of olive oil is massaged in for softness, though you suspect it's also to counteract the acidity of the previous step and stop your nails from melting entirely. The buffing process is something to behold. A chamois cloth, a dab of mysterious pink paste, allegedly carmined with beetle extract and scented with almond oil, and your nails are rubbed with enough energy to power a small steam engine. Each nail is coaxed to a gentle shine, and your manicurist pauses now and then to admire her handiwork, offering a running commentary on the superior morality of short, clean nails over the excesses of painted talons favoured by French actresses and ladies of questionable virtue. When the buffing is complete, your nails are declared suitably reflective. For special occasions, there's the option of polish, a thin, iridescent pink created by crushing carmine beetles and mixing their pigment with natural resins. You marvel at the price of beauty, and also at the fact that your fingertips now bear a faint resemblance to exotic bonbons. The final stage is all about protection. A thin layer of beeswax is rubbed into the nail beds, meant to lock in moisture and deter the evils of city dust. You are advised to wear gloves whenever you leave the house, to avoid overexertion, and, above all, to never, ever chew your nails, lest you become a cautionary tale at the next tea party. The manicurist regales you with stories. The noblewoman who lost a suitor to a hangnail, the playwright who signed his contract in ink and ruined his nails for a season, the daring cousin who tried carbolic acid for a quick clean and ended up in mittens for a month. The moral of every story is clear. Nails may be small, but they command respect and a little healthy fear. You leave the table with hands transformed, nails gleaming in the gaslight, and an overwhelming desire to wave at someone just to show off your new shine. In Victorian society, these are more than fingertips. They're status symbols, tiny shields of polish and pride. And if you ever need to attract a passing ship, or simply your neighbour's attention, rest assured your hands are up to the task. Once you've survived the treatments, you're spritzed with perfumes to cover up the smell of chemicals, panic, and regret. Eau de gardenia meets Eau de help me. The perfume counter is the final stop in the great Victorian beauty gauntlet, a dazzling display of crystal vials, cut glass bottles, and ornate atomizers, each containing a different olfactory fantasy. The air is thick with the scent of ambition and mild desperation, layered over whatever it was you endured just moments before. The philosophy here is simple. If you can't smell like a rose, at least don't smell like bear grease and regret. Your beautician, now part stylist, part perfumer, stands behind the counter with the confidence of a woman who's seen everything and still manages to breathe through her nose. She offers you a menu of scents: gardenia, violet, orange blossom, ambergris, yes, that ambergris, and even the enigmatic Hungary water, a mixture so secretive and so universally pungent that nobody's quite sure what's in it, least of all the person applying it. She begins by sniffing you, delicately and diplomatically, as though you're a cheese to be judged at the county fair. Let's see, there's a bit of bear fat, a whisper of ammonia, and just a suggestion of singed hair. We'll go with something bold. She selects a bulb atomizer and squeezes a fine mist of scent over your head and shoulders, enveloping you in a fragrant fog that is equal parts hope and denial. Victorian perfumes are not subtle. They are built for survival, intended to mask a world of sins and questionable hygiene. Some are single-note florals, so intense they make your eyes water. Others are complex bouquets, designed to suggest mystery and distract from any lingering eau d'onion shampoo. On special request, there are musky, animalic concoctions, whiffs of civet, a dab of deer musk, meant to communicate status, sensuality, or possibly your ability to overpower a hunting dog at 50 paces. You try not to flinch as scent after scent is tested on your wrists, behind your ears, and, if you're feeling daring, along the collarbone. A passing waft of rose is quickly followed by the sharp tang of violet, the sweet stickiness of heliotrope, and the faintly alarming earthiness of orris root. Each is described with language usually reserved for fine wines. Complex, heady, lingering, and, in one memorable case, insistent. In the crowded waiting room, other clients undergo their own fragrant transformations. Some request a signature scent to announce their arrival in any drawing room. Others ask for something discreet, intended to be discovered only by the most devoted suitors or nosy aunts. The perfumer takes pride in her skill, advising on combinations that will enhance pale skin, flatter auburn hair, or, most importantly, cover up the ghost of the depilatory debacle. If you're unlucky, you may be subjected to the dreaded lavender spritz, a floral barrage so overwhelming it threatens to stun small animals and most of the local gentry. Or perhaps you're chosen for a spritz of white rose of York, which will linger on your gloves, in your hair, and across your pillow for days, leaving you with the distinct impression that you've been adopted by a botanical garden. You're given tips for maintaining your new aroma. Keep a scented handkerchief for emergencies, never mix perfume with eau de cologne, and, above all, avoid close quarters with anyone freshly bathed in macassar oil. As a final flourish, your stylist dabs a little perfume onto your fan, so every coy flutter sends out a fragrant declaration of your newly minted beauty. You leave the salon enveloped in a fragrant cloud, equal parts flower shop, sweet shop, and apothecary. The smell announces you before you even step into the carriage, ensuring that, if nothing else, your beauty will not go unnoticed. In the grand parade of Victorian fashion, perfume is the finishing touch, the invisible signature that says, "I survived, and I smell better than you." After all the excitement, it's time for a little refreshment. Weak tea, stale biscuits, and the knowledge that the floral china probably has more lead than the beauty cream. The refreshment table stands at the far end of the salon, draped in a lace cloth that's seen better decades, flanked by dusty porcelain figurines and a solitary vase of artificial roses. This is the social hub where beauty and sustenance collide, sometimes with unintended consequences. Here, as your scalp tingles and your skin glows, or possibly itches, you gather your wits and your courage for the next phase of the ritual, snacks, Victorian style. The tea is served by an attendant whose only requirement appears to be a willingness to pour and a complete disregard for the strength of the brew. "Would you care for milk?" she asks, gesturing to a small jug that may or may not have been in the sun since breakfast. The tea itself is so weak that, held up to the light, it's virtually transparent, a gentle sepia tint more than a beverage, served just above room temperature and just below the threshold of flavour. The biscuits arrive in a tin that squeaks as it's opened, revealing a collection of treats so hard you suspect they could be used in lieu of the salon's nail files. There are arrowroot fingers, ginger nuts, and the ever-mysterious digestive, each boasting an expiration date that might predate the salon itself. You bite in cautiously, teeth braced for impact, and wonder if perhaps the real test of Victorian beauty isn't the hair washing, but the jaw strength required to survive the snack tray. Of course, nothing is quite as Victorian as floral china, dainty cups and saucers painted with wild roses, gold trim now faded to a dull mustard, and edges that sometimes reveal more than a hint of grey-green patina. Each cup feels heavy in the hand, solid and reassuring, until you remember the rumours. "Did you know," whispers the woman next to you, "that the paint is full of lead? Adds a certain piquancy to the tea." You nod and sip anyway, reasoning that if the face cream didn't get you, the crockery probably will. It's a communal affair. The women gather, balancing cups, nibbling cautiously, and trading observations. There are always complaints about the tea, the weather, the new beauty trends from Paris, too much powder, not enough restraint, and, inevitably, about the biscuits. Do you think these were meant for human consumption? One woman muses, wrapping her biscuit on the table to demonstrate its resilience. Another claims she keeps a few in her reticule for self-defense. For the bold, there are salon treats, candied violets, suspiciously shiny marzipan fruits, or slices of cake so dense they threaten to pull your teeth from their sockets. Someone always brings out sugared almonds, which cling to your newly cleaned teeth and fill the next quarter hour with delicate, ladylike attempts to remove them. Yet, despite the lack of culinary excitement, the snack break is a highlight. It's a time for gossip, catching up on the latest scandal, who's eloping, who fainted in the waiting room, and whose beauty routine is now banned by polite society. It's a chance to recover from the scalp massage, nurse your wounded eyebrows, and prepare mentally for whatever lead-laced lotion or arsenic wafer the salon will offer next. As you set down your cup and dust biscuit crumbs from your lap, you can't help but marvel at the stamina required to survive both the beauty regimen and the refreshment hour. You're fortified, if not entirely nourished, and ready to face another round with curling tongs, rice powder, or the next cup of mystery tea. After all, in the Victorian salon, beauty may demand suffering, but tea time demands nerves of steel, strong teeth, and a fondness for the absurd. Salons are where secrets are traded, marriages arranged, and reputations carefully destroyed. One eyebrow lift can ruin your whole season. The Victorian salon is much more than a den of beauty experiments and mild chemical burns. It's the nerve centre of polite society, the ultimate information superhighway, only slower, smellier, and far less anonymous. Every velvet chair, an antimacassar, is a front-row seat to a play that never closes. Society, season after season, starring everyone you know. As you sip your lead-infused tea and nibble a biscuit that could double as a doorstop, you quickly realize the real reason most clients flock to the salon isn't the prospect of bare-fat hair treatments or rice powder complexions. It's the chance to listen, observe, and, if your manicure is sufficiently distracting, insert yourself into the great Victorian gossip machine. The conversations whirl around you in delicate, coded phrases. No one says outright that Lady Wellington's new health tonic has made her unfit for polite company. They simply remark that she's looking awfully energetic for someone who claims to be an invalid. Eyebrows are not so much raised as deployed, silent missiles capable of devastating entire family reputations with a single well-timed arch. You soon learn that every visit is a performance. Women perch on chairs, glancing surreptitiously at rivals' dresses, hat trimmings and newly styled fringes, ready to either compliment or quietly destroy with a whispered, "How daring." A single comment about the colour of someone's complexion can echo through the drawing rooms for weeks, inspiring rushed appointments and frantic attempts at correction. The stylists themselves are equal parts beauticians and secret keepers. They have the dirt on everyone from duchesses to dowagers and wield their knowledge with all the skill of a seasoned diplomat. The trick is to listen for what's not being said. A sigh. A pause. The careful way Mrs. Pomeroy refers to her dear friend's unfortunate experience with lamp-black mascara. It's all information, ripe for the picking. Every ritual becomes an opportunity for subterfuge. The waiting room is a minefield of alliances and rivalries. A fainting spell may be real, or it may be an expertly timed exit to avoid a certain guest. The snack table is both neutral ground and battleground, where alliances are forged over tepid tea and broken with a careless word about someone's manicure technique. There's a subtle art to it all. You learn to smile graciously while taking mental notes, to offer vague encouragement. What a unique choice of rouge. And to deflect with practiced innocence. I heard Lady F is feeling much improved. Such a pity about her husband's business, of course. And if you happen to overhear a juicy tidbit about a rival's arsenic wafer mishap, you file it away for future use, perhaps as a gentle warning or a strategic act of sabotage. But gossip isn't just a weapon, it's a currency, traded for invitations, introductions, and the occasional bit of mercy. The salon is the one place where even the most formidable matron is vulnerable, stripped of her dignity by a scalp massage or a failed attempt at the Parisian fringe. Secrets are bartered as freely as biscuits, and everyone is both spy and suspect. By the end of your appointment, you've not only endured the full range of Victorian beauty treatments, but also navigated a web of intrigue worthy of a 3-volume novel. You leave with new hair, a powdery complexion, and a mind buzzing with secrets, some harmless, some devastating, all delicious. In the Victorian salon, beauty is fleeting, but scandal is forever. As you step out into the gaslit evening, you realize you might survive the bear grease, the rice powder, and the occasional faint, but a single lifted eyebrow could end your social season before it begins. Tread carefully, and remember, in this world, your reputation is as fragile and as fiercely protected as your new manicure. You're sent home with strict instructions. Reapply powder hourly, avoid sunlight, and for best results, do not under any circumstances cry. The final moments of your salon adventure are a blur of helpful warnings and alarming recommendations. Your stylist, now part drill sergeant, part spiritual advisor, presses a pocket-sized tin of rice powder into your gloved hand and reminds you that maintenance is everything. The powder, she explains, must be patted on the nose, chin, and areas prone to unsightly shine no less than once per hour, or whenever you sense your social standing beginning to wilt. Stay indoors as much as possible, she cautions, eyes narrowing. The sun is your enemy, not just for freckles, but for any hope of maintaining this exquisite, faintly radioactive complexion. Victorian beauty is a nocturnal sport. like a fragile orchid. You are now meant to thrive best in filtered gaslight or beneath the somber shade of an oversized bonnet. Mirrors, meanwhile, are to be treated with extreme caution. Admire, but don't study. Your beautician warns, one can always find something to improve, and that's the first step on the path to ruin. The logic is pure Victorian. A woman who spends too long before a looking glass may discover cracks in the rice powder, uneven rouge, or, horror of horrors, a surviving freckle. Best to glide past, catch a glimpse, and assume perfection. You're also handed a small, tightly written card, The Golden Rules of Victorian Beauty Maintenance. Among the instructions, never touch your face with bare hands. Gloves are your only defense against the world and your own curiosity. If you must sneeze, do so quietly and always away from powdered surfaces. In case of accidental tears, blot gently with a scented handkerchief and immediately reapply powder. Should your fringe rebel, pin it down and blame the humidity. Most importantly, never, ever admit to the use of bear fat, arsenic wafers, or spirit gum. If asked, insist you are naturally radiant and leave it at that. Nighttime brings its own routine. The bedtime regimen consists of brushing out pomade with a stiff brush and more hope than skill, removing false lashes with an apology, and applying yet more cream, hopefully something less deadly than the morning batch. Your stylist recommends sleeping upright if possible, to avoid crushing the hair, smudging the powder, or accidentally gluing your cheek to the pillow. It's how the Queen does it, she says. You suspect the Queen has a better pillowcase. There's a subtle panic woven through the aftercare instructions, as though one wrong step might undo hours and a small fortune of transformation. The fear of humidity, surprise weather, or unexpected emotion keeps you alert and slightly tense, your every movement calculated to avoid disaster. You wonder how anyone managed to enjoy a single picnic, wedding, or walk in the park. For the overachievers, the salon provides an emergency kit: miniature powders, rosewater spritz, and a bottle of restorative tonic for moments of despair. You're assured that if you follow the plan, powder, prayers, and a healthy distrust of mirrors, you'll not only look the part, but survive the season with your dignity intact. Yet there's also a kind of camaraderie in this elaborate dance of aftercare. As you leave, you pass others with similarly powdered noses and wary expressions, each clutching a velvet pouch or embroidered handkerchief. You exchange a nod. A silent pact to endure, to outlast the weather and the social season, to carry on the legacy of powdered perseverance. In the end, Victorian beauty isn't just about the treatments, it's about the rituals that follow. Powder hourly, pray for cool weather, and, above all, avoid mirrors on a bad day. Because the real secret to lasting beauty is knowing when not to look too closely, and when to simply laugh, powder puff in hand, at the whole absurd ordeal. At the end of the day, you peer into your cloudy mirror. Your skin is pink, your hair is crisp, your eyebrows are questionable. You look fabulous, if by fabulous you mean heroically undeterred by pain and public opinion. And that, apparently, is true Victorian beauty. It's quiet now. The bustle of the salon, the hiss of steam, the hum of gossip, all have faded into the memory of a day well survived. Your shoes are off. Your hair, lacquered with bear grease and singed in pursuit of the perfect curl, defies gravity in bold new directions. One curl, you notice, has somehow migrated toward your ear. Another forms a question mark, as if your scalp is asking you, really? Your cheeks glow, not just with the flush of healthy rouge, but also with the unmistakable heat of an afternoon spent enduring lemon juice, ammonia, and the sincere but misguided efforts of Mrs. Dabble's restorative cream. There's a faint tingling, a sign that the lead-laced powder and arsenic wafer did something. Whether that something was beauty, or simply a new evolutionary adaptation, remains to be seen. You take in your own reflection, fogged by both steam and skepticism. Your eyebrows, one finely arched, the other holding out for a second opinion, provide a sort of visual tension that's very in vogue in avant-garde art circles, if not Mayfair drawing rooms. There's a hint of lampblack smudged near your left ear, a relic of the great eyelash campaign, and your lips are stained a subtle beetroot pink. If you tilt your head just so, and squint a little, you can almost see the allure Victorian society promises. Your hands, freshly buffed and smelling faintly of lemon and hope, frame your face as you assess the results. Is this beauty? Is this madness? Is there, perhaps, a third option that involves fewer rodents and more sleep? Still, there's something oddly triumphant about surviving it all. The burning, the plucking, the faint sense that you've just completed an elaborate hazing ritual for admission to the upper crust. You remember your stylist's words. True beauty takes patience, bravery, and a very loose definition of pleasant. It's true. You've been steamed, powdered, painted, and perfumed within an inch of your life. You've avoided mirrors, sunlight, and emotional outbursts, all in the name of fitting a standard dreamed up by poets and enforced by aunts. And yet, there's a spark of pride. You endured the scalp massage that bordered on exorcism, the fringe fiasco that may haunt your grandchildren, and the depilatory wax that left you questioning the very concept of smoothness. You survived tea that tasted like regret and biscuits that could double as architectural support beams. You've learned to reapply powder with the regularity of a Victorian train schedule, and to navigate the salon's social labyrinth with nothing but a powdered nose and a polite nod. Perhaps, in the soft glow of the gaslight, with your beauty mask cracking ever so slightly and a suspiciously shiny curl defying all attempts at taming, you glimpse the real achievement. It's not the perfectly pale complexion or the unsinged fringe. It's the stubborn, collective hope that beauty is worth pursuing, even if it's always just out of reach and occasionally hazardous to your health. You smile at your reflection, pink, powdery, and indomitable. Fabulous? Maybe. Undeterred? Absolutely. Because in the world of Victorian beauty, the greatest accessory is the ability to endure, to laugh at the absurdity, and to greet tomorrow's new trend, whatever it may bring, with a curl, a quirked brow, and the faint aroma of gardenias and triumph. Congratulations, you are now, and forever will be, a survivor of the Victorian salon. Beauty isn't just for the ladies. You watch as a gentleman sits in the barber's chair, gets his face lathered with soap, and has a straight razor waved over his jugular by a man whose hands shake from caffeine and existential dread. The signature look? Enormous sideburns waxed with bear oil, and a mustache that doubles as a soup strainer. The men's corner of the Victorian salon is a world unto itself, a testosterone-scented sanctuary where masculinity is sharpened, fluffed, and in some cases, thoroughly intimidated. The air is heavy with bay rum, pipe smoke, and a lingering sense of unease as gentlemen await their fate on creaky leather chairs, clutching their top hats like life preservers. The decor is less floral, more mahogany, with the occasional stag head mounted for moral support. Barbers in this era are equal parts surgeon, therapist, and amateur sculptor. The tools of the trade are fearsome. Straight razors honed to a gleaming edge, strops that hang menacingly from the counter, and an array of mysterious bottles promising everything from invigorating scalp lotion to rejuvenating mustache elixir. Every man in the queue eyes the razor with respect, knowing that a shaky hand could turn a morning's grooming into an impromptu duel with mortality. The ritual begins with a towel, steaming hot and perfumed with bay leaf, which is wrapped around the face to soften the beard and humble the spirit. The barber works up a lather using soap that smells like hope and anxiety, swirling it into a rich foam and painting the gentleman's jaw as if priming a canvas for greatness or possible disaster. There's always a moment of silent prayer as the razor hovers near the throat, and the barber makes small talk to distract both himself and the client from the possibility of unintended bloodletting. Shaving, however, is just the warm-up. The true artistry comes with the shaping and waxing of the Victorian mustache and sideburns, a contest of size, symmetry, and the liberal use of bear oil. Bear oil, once considered a wonder elixir, is scooped from jars with gusto and massaged into every follicle until the hair glistens like a freshly polished boot. The scent is unmistakable, earthy, wild, and only slightly alarming. For strength and shine, the barber explains, as if preparing the gentleman for the Crimean front rather than a garden party. The moustache receives particular attention. Victorian facial hair is not subtle. The goal is to create a handlebar capable of sheltering fledgling sparrows or, at the very least, filtering soup. The ends are twisted, waxed, and coaxed skyward in elaborate curls, often so pronounced that conversation becomes a navigational hazard. Mind the moustache, the barber warns, or you'll never hear the end of it from Mrs. Featherstone at dinner. Sideburns are likewise sculpted with reverence. The favoured style is thick, sweeping, and fiercely territorial, sideburns that announce your presence before you even say a word. The barber runs a comb through the glossy whiskers, inspects them from multiple angles, and then adds a final touch, a dusting of talcum powder to keep the shine without alarming the horses. Of course, the male salon is not free from the perils of gossip. While the ladies trade secrets about arsenic wafers and the latest in fringe technology, the gentlemen quietly compete over who has the bushiest chops or the most resilient pomade. The barber, ever the confident, knows every scandal, who's secretly using dye to hide grey, whose whiskers suffered a tragic soup incident, and which man is rumoured to have borrowed his wife's rice powder for a particularly daunting committee meeting. In the end, the gentleman rises from the chair transformed, clean-shaven, in most places, moustache gleaming, sideburns set to conquer. He tips the barber, dons his hat at a rakish angle, and strides forth with the confidence of a man who has stared into the abyss of Victorian grooming and emerged, against all odds, intact. Because in the Victorian world, beauty is universal, bravery is mandatory, and a moustache is always a conversation starter. On your way out, you're offered a bottle of Dr. Blenkinsop's perfect complexion elixir, guaranteed to restore youth, dissolve freckles, and possibly your intestines. Ingredients: opium, alcohol, a touch of gold dust, and confidence. If you survive, you'll look radiant. At least, that's what the testimonials from nervous debutantes say. The patent remedy table sits by the salon's exit, surrounded by ornate posters and feverish promises. There are colourful bottles, elaborate labels, and a respectable stack of testimonials written in the kind of spidery handwriting that suggests a combination of hope and mild delirium. No Victorian beauty regimen is truly complete until you've been offered a cure-all elixir that boasts the power to fix everything except, perhaps, your skepticism. The saleswoman, a vision in purple satin, approaches with the smooth confidence of someone who has never once let side effects get in the way of a sale. She gestures grandly to an array of restoratives, each guaranteed to do something spectacular to your complexion, your vitality, or your ability to sleep through a thunderstorm. This one, she whispers, contains rare herbs from the Orient and a small but crucial measure of tincture of thyme. The label reads, Dr. Pilbeam's Invigorating Beauty Cordial for faintness, freckles, and fits of melancholy. Another bottle, Madame Porcelain's Secret Solution, promises to lighten your skin, sharpen your wits, and restore the sparkle to tired ankles. Curiosity, or perhaps a sense of doom, compels you to read the fine print. Ingredients lists are an adventure in themselves. Alcohol in industrial quantities, opium for nerves, a dash of chloroform for clarity, and enough sugar to ensure you'll need a visit to the dentist before next season. There's also a dash of genuine gold dust for that luminous effect. Never mind if it's more likely to settle in your spleen than your cheeks. You're assured that these remedies are recommended by the highest authorities, who remain conveniently unnamed. To bolster the case, there's a sheaf of before and after sketches, one depicting a pallid, frowning lady, the other a mysteriously beaming vision with suspiciously energetic pupils. "Just one spoonful before bed," the saleswoman coaxes, "and you'll wake up feeling 10 years younger, or at least 10 years more optimistic." Stories circulate among the regulars. There's the tale of Miss Ethel, who gained glowing skin and a reputation for staying up all night at parties. Never mind the occasional hallucinations involving talking wallflowers. Or Lord Shillingsby, who restored his youth with Dr. Blenkinsop's elixir and spent the next week sleepwalking through the rose beds, serenading his neighbours. But who can resist? The salon is a gauntlet of hope and hazard, and the promise of a miracle is often more intoxicating than the product itself. You consider the glowing endorsements. "My spots disappeared overnight," claims one. "Now I dance all evening and nap all day," exclaims another. No one mentions the mild addiction, persistent hiccups, or the sudden urge to write poetry at inopportune moments. For the cautious, there are gentler tonics, herbal infusions, and cleansing waters that claim to do nothing at all, which is perhaps the safest outcome. But the real magic, it seems, lies in the confidence with which you swallow whatever is handed to you, be it snake oil or sugar water. The true transformation comes not from the bottle, but from the hope and bravado that only a good marketing pitch, and perhaps a trace of opium, can inspire. You leave the salon, elixir in hand, feeling bolder, brighter, and just a bit more reckless. Will you wake up radiant or simply very well rested? That's a question for tomorrow. Tonight, you raise a toast to Victorian ingenuity, the eternal quest for beauty, and the everlasting appeal of a little harmless quackery, preferably taken with a spoonful of sugar and a pinch of common sense. You peek behind a curtain and see two worlds. Upstairs, the wealthy swan about in silk robes as servants wield imported French lotions. Downstairs, the maids improvise with candle stubs, lard, and old broom handles for curlers. Beauty may be fleeting, but class anxiety is forever. Upstairs, the air is thick with rosewater and entitlement. Here, beauty is a performance, one where every detail is attended to by armies of gloved hands. The lady of the house reclines on a velvet chaise, her only real effort, the occasional tilt of her head as a maid applies a cooling cream or a Parisian elixir. Treatments arrive by the parcel. Violet powders from Grasse, lotions with labels in French and ingredients in Latin, and pomades so expensive they come with their own lock and key. There are brushes made from the finest boar bristles, ivory-handled combs, and mirrors so flattering they practically whisper compliments. No discomfort is endured alone. A coterie of ladies' maids hover, each assigned a sacred duty. One is responsible for curling tongs, another for fetching hot towels, another for tracking down that one elusive shade of rouge that matches the Countess's favourite sash. Upstairs, beauty is not just a luxury, it's a well-rehearsed military operation. There are detailed schedules, a precise order of treatments, and the unwritten understanding that a stray hair or a less than alabaster complexion could disrupt the social ecosystem. Downstairs, it's a different universe, a world of resourcefulness and resigned hilarity. The maids have no patience for Parisian frippery or time for elaborate routines. Their arsenal is whatever's on hand. Leftover lard from the kitchen is whipped into hair pomade. Soot from the hearth is tapped into the world's most budget. Friendly eyeliner and broom handles become makeshift curling rods. Extra points if you can avoid getting splinters in your fringe. Hair washing isn't a delicate monthly event, but a matter of practicality. Rainwater if you're lucky, tepid dregs from the washtub if you're not. There's no imported rice powder, just a quick dusting of flour or even chalk for a pale effect. Face creams? Try a smear of cold bacon fat, or, if it's payday, a dab of plain soap followed by a brisk slap for complexion. The legendary maid's manicure consists of scraping nails clean with a knife, followed by a vigorous polish on the nearest apron. Downstairs, beauty is performed in stolen moments, early morning before the mistress rings, or late at night by candlelight, when the threat of interruption is low and the promise of privacy is as luxurious as any imported lotion. It's communal, sometimes even comedic. One maid might hold the curling iron, heated in the kitchen fire, naturally, while another bravely volunteers her head as the first subject of the evening's experimental pomade, which is more lard than lavender. There are shrieks, giggles, and the occasional yelp as yet another beauty innovation goes awry. Despite the makeshift tools and unpredictable results, there's a camaraderie among the downstairs crowd. They share tips, swap remedies, and laugh at each other's disasters, like the night everyone tried to bleach freckles with vinegar and spent the next day hiding their faces in shame and handkerchiefs. There's pride in a curl that holds, in eyebrows evenly penciled with charcoal, and in the boldness required to face the world after an improvised depilatory that didn't quite go as planned. Back upstairs, perfection is expected. Downstairs, beauty is won by cunning, trial, and a touch of mischief. Yet, whether draped in silk or scrubbing out stains, everyone is haunted by the same anxieties. Will they fit in? Will they be noticed? Will they survive another social season without becoming the talk of the kitchen, or worse, the drawing room? In the end, Victorian beauty is less about what you put on your face than where you stand in the house and how cleverly you make do. Upstairs or down, the quest for loveliness is a tale of hope, hard work, and the ever-present, ever-funny anxiety of simply wanting to look your best. Not to be outdone, Victorian gentlemen frequent their own beauty parlours, where beards are curled, wigs are fluffed, and every other product is scented like tobacco and regret. The only thing more competitive than women's fashion? The battle of the beards. If you imagined that Victorian men simply washed their faces with cold water and got on with their lives, think again. Behind the frosted glass of the gentleman's salon lies a world of masculine vanity as rich and complex as any lady's powder room. Step inside, and you're met with the scent of pipe smoke, bay rum, leather, and the faint but unmistakable whiff of ambition. The decor is dark and imposing, mahogany furniture, brass spittoons, and thick velvet drapes designed to absorb any excess bravado. Here, men gather to compete in the ancient art of facial hair maintenance. The barbers wield curling irons with as much pride as any lady's stylist, crafting beards and moustaches into architectural wonders. There's the imperial, sharply waxed and shaped, the Dundreary, long sweeping side whiskers, and, for the truly adventurous, the full English, everything but the eyebrows. Symmetry is next to godliness, the barber intones, lining up a client's moustache with the accuracy of a railway engineer and the solemnity of a bishop. Beard oil is slathered on with enthusiasm, a pungent mix of bear fat, beef tallow, and whatever essence happens to be fashionable that week: pine, cedar, patchouli, or more often than not, pure tobacco. Nothing like it for shine, claims the barber, massaging the oil into the client's whiskers and ensuring a glossy finish that reflects both the gaslights and the owner's self-satisfaction. Of course, the smell follows the wearer everywhere, leaving a fragrant trail through club rooms and billiard halls. Some wives complain that they can track their husbands by scent alone, which is either reassuring or alarming, depending on the marriage. Wigs, too, are part of the male salon's secret arsenal. Baldness is, after all, considered a sign of either deep intellectual pursuit or alarming moral decay. Best not to risk it. Men submit to the fitting of natural hairpieces, which come in every shade except the one that would match naturally. The process involves pins, glue, powder, and prayer, as the wig is shaped and styled to defy both gravity and the suspicions of acquaintances. A well-set wig is a badge of honour. A crooked one is the stuff of scandal and silent snickers. Products line the shelves in decorative tins and glass jars, pomades, oils, and invigorating lotions that promise to make hair grow, shine, or, if the ingredients list is to be believed, tap dance. There's even a special line of moustache waxes imported from France. Famed for their stiffness and their ability to withstand sudden rainstorms or encounters with over-enthusiastic Labradors, competition among the men is fierce. In the waiting area, gentlemen size each other up, trading compliments that are compliments in name only. "Splendid fullness, old chap," says one, twirling his own moustache with calculated nonchalance. Another lifts his chin just enough to display a sideburn that could double as a shelf. There are whispered rumours of beard implants, secret dye jobs, and at least one fellow who, it's said, achieved his luxurious whiskers by rubbing them nightly with garlic and fortitude. Beyond the mirrors and grooming rituals, the salon serves as a social club, a place to hear the latest news, air grievances about politics, or simply bond over the perils of whisker management. One can find solace in the camaraderie. After all, only here can a man confess to accidentally setting fire to his moustache without fear of social ruin. When the treatments are done, a final spritz of gentleman's cologne, a hearty blend of tobacco, sandalwood, and raw confidence completes the look. You leave the salon not just groomed, but armoured for the battles of business, society, and supper. In Victorian Britain, to be a man is to be magnificent, mysterious, and, if necessary, mildly flammable. You notice the discreet back door marked medical assistance. Inside, a harried doctor bandages chemical burns, plucks out singed eyelashes, and listens to tales of hair loss, swooning, and rouge-induced fainting. Victorian beauty isn't just pain. It's a full-contact sport with a high chance of follow-up care. The medical room is a secret you're not supposed to notice. No client brags about having visited, but nearly all have, some for a quick dab of ointment, others for a more, shall we say, intensive intervention. The space is cramped, lined with rows of brown bottles, bandages, and a faint, permanent scent of camphor and regret. The doctor, sleeves rolled, glasses smudged, looks equal parts battle-worn and resigned, a man who has seen one too many cases of tonic shock and pomade poisoning. He starts his rounds with the burn victims, ladies who trusted a little too much in ammonia-based miracle shampoos or gentlemen who didn't flinch quickly enough during the moustache-curling process. Cotton pads soaked in soothing lotion are pressed gently onto pink, blistered skin. Next time, the doctor mutters, consider water instead of nitric acid for your teeth. Sitting quietly in a corner is a girl whose fringe was the victim of an overzealous apprentice and a red-hot curling tong. Her eyebrows, now half gone, are being penciled back on by the nurse. A gentleman clutches an ice pack to his cheek, his jaw still tingling from invigorating beard elixir. Ingredient list: bear oil, pepper, and just a hint of mystery rash. There's a silent, understanding camaraderie in this waiting room, a shared knowledge that, while beauty may be fleeting, scars and stories are forever. The doctor has heard it all. Doctor, is it normal for my skin to tingle after the face cream? Only if by tingle you mean burst into flames. Will my eyelashes grow back? Perhaps, if you treat them gently and avoid further experiments with lampblack and spirit gum. Is it safe to swallow arsenic wafers if they're French? Absolutely not, though the French bit might excuse your accent in the afterlife. Between bandaging and brow penciling, the doctor dispenses advice with a dry wit. If you can smell burning, it's too late, and never trust a beauty product that fizzes, hisses, or is recommended by someone called Madame. He prescribes rosewater for nearly everything, cool compresses for burns, soothing gargles for whitening disasters, and a stiff drink for both the patient and himself. In his quieter moments, he confides, honestly, the best cure is time, and perhaps a long holiday somewhere that still allows freckles. Sometimes the emergencies are less visible. Swooning is endemic, brought on by the twin perils of tight corsets and surprise glimpses of one's own reflection after a new hair colour. The doctor, ever prepared, keeps smelling salts close by. Don't breathe too deeply, he warns. You'll only end up back here. Of course, the most frequent visitors are the silent ones, those who come not for bandages but reassurance. The young debutante, red-faced after a disastrous rouge incident, who just needs someone to promise her that no one will notice if she faces east at every dance. The gentleman whose new beard dye has stained his collar, his confidence, and briefly, his marriage prospects. As you peek in, you realize the truth of Victorian beauty. It's not just an ordeal, it's a gamble. For every tale of glowing skin or perfect curls, there's an equal and opposite saga of mild disfigurement, unexpected allergies, and the quiet heroism of the medical staff who patch up the casualties. You step back into the salon proper, your admiration for your fellow beauty seekers deepened. If nothing else, you are united by a shared willingness to risk everything for the fleeting thrill of looking your best, or at least looking like you tried. In Victorian society, that's bravery, and it certainly keeps the doctor in business. So as you drift off tonight, cocooned in your clean sheets and blessed by the miracle of modern shampoo, let's take a quiet moment for the brave souls of the Victorian beauty salon. They endured singed hair, suspect creams, lead-laced powders, and eyebrow trends that would frighten a modern influencer. They risked it all for a fleeting chance at beauty, armed with bear grease, rice powder, and the kind of optimism only possible before ingredient labels existed. Maybe tonight you'll dream of curling tongs glowing orange in a gaslit room, the hiss of ammonia in the air, and the gentle murmur of gossip drifting beneath a chandelier. Or perhaps you'll remember that true courage is letting someone named Mrs. Pringle attack your scalp with a razor, while a stranger offers you an arsenic wafer for your glow. But mostly, I hope you'll wake tomorrow with a new appreciation for the humble joys of unscented soap and eyebrow pencils that don't involve mice. Because as ridiculous, painful, and frankly hazardous as Victorian beauty routines could be, there's something quietly heroic about their stubborn hope, the belief that a little powder, a lot of perfume, and the right shade of rouge could make the world just a bit brighter. So tuck in, be grateful for your modern comforts, and maybe whisper a soft thank you to those who survived history's beauty blunders before us. Because if they could make it through a Victorian salon, you can definitely handle whatever tomorrow throws your way. Good night. Sleep well. And may your dreams be free of steam cabinets and burning hair.